Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and hello to International Affairs Broadcasting live from the Dhaka's Gulshan studio. My name is Shamsul Alam Pantho. I shall bring you all the top headlines from around the globe and as well as our nation in Bangladesh. But before I do so, let me introduce my panelists here in the studio. We have Mr. Ali Ahmed, who is of course an economist and the former member of Customs of the National Board of Revenue. I welcome him onto the program today. Alongside, we have our geopolitical correspondent, Norman Floyd Barnes, joining us from Washington, District of Columbia. I want to read out some of the important news headlines before I can come down to the topic specifics. Of course, that includes the Israeli government approving a proposal to register vast areas of the occupied West Bank as state property for the first time since 1967. Alongside, U.S. President Donald Trump says that member states of the new Board of Peace will announce pledges of over $5 billion for the Gaza reconstruction plan, and the killing of 4 people in Israeli drone strike targeting a vehicle in eastern Lebanese town of Majal Anjar near the Lebanese-Syrian border despite having a ceasefire. Actually, I want to know, I don't think that the Israeli sides understand what a ceasefire includes and how the releasing of tensions are going to go down, but it is very important to understand how these member countries of the Board of Peace shall be putting in $5 billion. That's a very big amount. And I want to begin with Ali Ahmed in the studio before I can go to Norman. It is very authoritarian to see that it is a high stakes ball game and that countries are having to implement monetary issues in order to have some kind of participation. What is your views?
This is a good way of collecting money, because money would be needed. There will be, some people say 60, but it is about 100 billions of taka be needed. So, this is one of the ways. This may not be all that is needed. Further funding would be essential, but then this is a good first step if it comes to that. But the interesting thing that the Palestinian land and the Palestinians are not on the board, but Netanyahu, the occupying power, is there. So, that is a thing that is universally not acceptable otherwise. And why should he? If he pays for it, he should pay the whole thing, or at least the major part of it at America. But anyway, this is a good beginning, I should say, and discussions should go ahead. But if it is not good, then it won't finally be acceptable. That is the most important thing for the Palestinians.
Of course, and the recent movement towards seizing most of the occupied West Bank as a state property also shows Israelis' expansionist ideas and plans, some of which was released and which was held up by placards by Benjamin Netanyahu at the last UN General Assembly, which even I saw happening in my very own eyes. I want to move on to Norman Floyd Barnes joining us from Washington, D.C. A very good morning to you, Norman. I was reading out some of the news which includes Israel as well. They are trying to annex some parts of the West Bank. And not only so, Donald Trump says that Board of Peace members are to pledge over $5 billion for Gaza reconstruction. And that is important to understand what kind of world we are progressing. Alongside, there is negotiations set to happen between the U.S. and Iran in a second negotiation with regards to the nuclear deterrence issue. So I want to begin with Norman and to understand what are the latest updates that you have from your desk.
Morning. Today we're celebrating a holiday, President's Day, and with that said, our president and the you mentioned the Board of Peace. They are planning to redevelop Gaza. At the same time, the West Bank is now preparing to be annexed by Israel. As I mentioned the other day, without the West Bank being considered in this process, it appears that this new Board of Peace, I call Peace and Profit, is preparing for a new area of Israel called Gaza, and they want to develop that. and the Palestinians are not being configured into that. So the option, as we talk about many times, the two-state situation, it appears to be something of the past. It appears that by all means, the redevelopment efforts are for the incoming people, not the existing Palestinian people. Uh, and the situation with the West Bank will ensure that the Palestinian will not have a representation and presence in regards to what goes on in the area. So that means there will be continued conflict in the area. Even though there's development plans, they're talking about peace plans, but the peace is for the people who are not Palestinians. And the issue, in my interpretation, will continue, and we will not see an end to this conflict in the area. There will be other flaps, there'll be other issues, and Israel will continue on this campaign of devastating and basically genocide for the Palestinians. So this is another proof that the genocide is in place for the Palestinian. That area is being planned to be used for other purposes, not the purposes of what the press is hearing. Here in the United States, we just finished the weekend where the Congress has not approved the funding plan for the Department of Homeland Security. So right now they are out new funding. They are existing on current funding, and we're waiting to see exactly how long that funding will last and to what extent this investigation of the Department of Homeland Security is continued. So here we go. Like I said, today is a holiday. Tomorrow we'll get into the table with the Congress, and they will discuss more exactly the events and how we move it along with the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman Floyd Barnes. That was an important update regarding various issues coming out of the United States. And one of those issues that I picked out was the funding regarding the Department of Homeland Security. And not only so, the newly elected mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, had earlier on signed an executive order. And as of recent, it has blocked immigration and customs enforcement from its city, one of the biggest city inside the United States, the Big Apple, New York.
The biggest city, in fact.
Biggest city. So, once again, I want to understand firstly from Ali Ahmed in the studio regarding how the people-centric movement is happening, the administration versus the people. And that has happened in the last 46 days. We've seen numerous American lives being lost in the face of the administration. We've seen the U.S. military having foreign excursions on foreign
territory. Especially in
territory.
Minneapolis area, it was.
Especially in Minneapolis. So I want to get a brief from you before I can move on with the Iran negotiations.
It is from the very beginning. Playing in Federal Reserve Police or Federal Army in the civilian area, it is absolutely unlawful. There was no need. It can be employed only when the security of the state is in danger, or when there is likely to be serious civil war, but nothing is there. It is a purely law enforcement issue, as one can understand, and normal police forces, they are sufficient to do it. But instead of using the state police force, he is bringing the federal sort of army. This is unlawful, and it has been done without congressional approval. But then President Donald Trump has been doing most of the things unlawfully. So this is absolutely not covered by law, and it is not needed either, and it has resulted in fatalities. 2-3 persons have died in recent times. So I think this is not going to do well for Donald Trump, although he seems not to care about what happens. But then a politician must also take care of how the people think and how the people react. But whenever there is a reaction from the people's side, he thinks it is the Democrats doing it. But people dying are not just Democrats, they are citizens of the United States. And this time it is the white citizens whom he cares for, supposed to care for. So this is absolute, how do I say, absolute autocracy of the worst order in a democratically elected country.
Of course, a very important explanation regarding how the people and the administration sees eye to eye. And on to the next topic of discussion today. I'm receiving some news that the second round of negotiations between the US and Iran is set to be held in Geneva ahead of the second round of indirect talks with the United States. Abbas Araghchi has already arrived there. Not only so, the earlier talks was held in Muscat, Oman, which was the first diplomatic engagement since high tensions derailed earlier efforts. This time around, it is definitely to talk regarding the zero enrichment capability and sustained inspections by the IAEA, the organization responsible to understand atomic energy agency. So, its director is supposed to be continuing meeting in this talk with the Iranian negotiators ahead of the discussions. The outcomes are still uncertain. Both sides remain far apart on key issues like enrichment limits, sanctions, and on verification. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did eye and speculate about regime change inside Iran. All of these issues.
Not just speculating, he was very open and vocal about regime change is the answer. But he also must take into notice the clear Russian and Chinese threats, you can say, or assurance that they will not let it happen that way, because it is an independent country, and this regime that they are trying to remove, good or bad, is a different thing, but it has been running there for over 42 years now, and suddenly Donald Trump is the person who thinks openly and preaching it to the world that remove, and if the rest of the world says that removal of Trump would be better for America, how would he think? This is absolutely not political, not diplomatic, not even gentlemanly.
Of course, that's a very important description of what is happening with Donald Trump. And I would want to ask Norman Floyd Barnes, is it very American to have this kind of discussions in which America is trying to disarm a foreign nation who is, of course, being supported by Russia, China, and other allies of the region? And of course, a warlike situation did come about even after post capture of Nicolas Maduro. So this time around in Geneva, what is your observations? What are you seeing for the future of Iran? And of course, the IAEA, who has been historically removed, if not decapitated, while trying to understand the Iranian enrichment of nuclear like elements. Norman Floyd Barnes.
Yes, thank you. First thing, this is not a American conversation. This is a conversation between the Trump administration and how they view their America First policy in regards to the world. The enrichment process by Iran, they are comfortable. They are comfortable where they sit right now, and they are prepared to talk about it, which means they have achieved some goals and they are prepared to move forward. However, through the elimination of the program, which has been pressed by the Israeli Prime Minister, it's not going to happen. The ballistic missiles removal and the total elimination is not going to happen. As my colleague mentioned, they are supported by superpowers of Russia and China to ensure that the U.S. do not come in there and take over the country and provide a situation like in Venezuela. So, with that said, the conversations and the talks will continue, but the concessions are not going to happen in the manner which the United States administration currently is projecting to play. So there will be some concessions that have to be made to continue this. The U.S. fleet is still standby. They're bringing in additional military assets to in that area, but they are basically just going to be standby. They're basically to be there as a show, to show a presence of power. But there will be no actions in the upcoming future regarding this matter because right now it's a matter of how do we get along? That is what's going to happen. The conversation is basically how do we comfortably coexist at the same time, achieve our national goals. The United States has a plan. The Iran has their plan. And the regime change is something that the United States has been talking about implementing, but because of global situations and geopolitical matters and other factors regarding the superpowers, this was a unlikely event to happen in the next 60 to 90 days, unless something else happened. But right now, we are not in the position, the United States and Israel, to basically to implement a assault on Iran.
Of course, the idea of assaulting Iran is not on the cards, as you were saying, for another 60 to 90 days. But I'm happy that it has taken a toll or it has taken a turn into a dialogue and speech between the two sides, and cooler heads are prevailing as of today. The foreign minister for Iran, Abbas Araghchi, is in Geneva to talk to his counterpart from the United States of America, and back into the studio with this issue. I mean, if we look at Taiwan, it's a nation inside Asia, inside the bracket of the Pacific, and what we understand is that the US have not completely disarmed other nations as well. They've armed, in this case, $11 billion armaments package coming to Taiwan because of understanding the threat from across into the mainland of China. I want to short comment before we can head to a break. That the Chinese side is trying to tell Washington that be wary of supplying Taiwan with weapons. What is your observation?
If you look at the Chinese point of view and history and other things, this country that is now a country, this island, this was an integral part of the main China. The retreating forces before the Chinese Revolution, they fled the mainland and took shelter in this island at the fag end. And China did not proceed at that time, or could not maybe. But this is a Chinese territory, but large enough to form a part, form a state with American assistance and everything. Now it is a very successful state, but then it's part of China, so China has a right to claim. As more distant is and later occupied the Honolulu and all those things, the Pacific Islands of US.
Hawaii and Honolulu.
Honolulu is the capital. So they occupied it later. But traditionally, this was called Formosa. This is
Formosa,
Taipei. Taipei is the capital. This is a traditional Chinese territory. The retreating and defeated forces of Chiang Kai-shek left the mainland and took shelter in that island. And at the end of this long civil war, maybe Mao Zedong's people were also tired, so they thought, well, we'll see later. They consolidated their administration. But that does not make it an independent country. But America is helping them. That is, in a way, is gross interference in the internal affairs of China.
Right.
So,
and of course, if you look at it regarding the Western Hemisphere policy that they've applied to themselves, one
so
can
this
also
is also Eastern Hemisphere.
Eastern Hemisphere. So that is the rhetoric and narratives coming out from the discussions we are having in the studio as well as through Zoom. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take a very short break. After the break, we shall discuss other pressing issues. Do stay tuned. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China, to come to agreement.
They will face better projects.
with President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
Opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing.
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement.
They will face better projects.
with President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity.
Welcome back on International Affairs. Today in the studio I'm joined by Mr. Ali Ahmed, while on Zoom I am joined by Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington DC, and I want to begin with Norman. One of the things focusing on our region, and that is very important because the nexus between China and its allies Russia and North Korea, while on the other side US and its allies Japan, South Korea and as well as Taiwan. The security nexus reminds us that anytime any kind of issue may arise, especially given that in the last 46 or so days we have seen international policies, international issues coming out in which military intervention was required. The armed forces of the US has unleashed itself on Latin America, Venezuela amongst others. Not only so, here inside Asia we see a rift between Japan and China. I want to talk about this because even after a snap election there is a female prime minister for the Japanese nation. For the very first time as well. So my question towards Norman Floyd Barnes, the diplomatic strain continues between Japan and China, and these two sides that we see coming out in the Chinese region or in the Asian region. I want to understand, how are you feeling about this? Do you expect some kind of retaliation, given that almost $11 million of weaponry has been sent to Taiwan courtesy of the United States?
Thank you again. This is part of the geopolitical world that we are now living in. Taiwan, as we know, is a very crucial location for technology globally. China believes and feels strongly that Taiwan is part of the motherland. They're part of their country, and they should be included in there. And so any intrusion, impact, or influence by the Western, particularly the United States world, is looked at a act of provocation. The Chinese believes that every country should be able to take care of their own affairs. The United States has a policy of impacting that influence the American way onto other countries. This is something China is looking at very harshly. in regard to Taiwan and other parts of the region. Particularly, they're going to be looking at the same thing in Bangladesh.
Right.
The fact that the United States wants to have a impact on the Taiwans by giving them weapons will agitate the Chinese philosophy. They basically do not want the Western influence, even though we promised to support them as they will be attacked from that previous administration. They do not want the Western influence to be such that they are dependent on the United States, for example, for their protection. They believe, Taiwan believes that they can leverage their technology, their relationship with the Western world to basically hold off the Chinese, what they call intrusion, invasion in the area. However, because of the geography and location and isolation, China has a upper hand on that. They control the waters, they control the seas, and they have a large impact on what comes in and out of the area. So we have to really watch this situation. I do not believe that China is going to tolerate any additional intrusion by the United States. Right now, China is basically wait and see, be calm, be stable, work on our infrastructure development. But when the Westerns start to basically put boots on the ground or weapons or anything like that, they will speak up and address that. So I'm looking for a conflict, a conversation with the two leaders of the United States and China regarding this matter. And basically, China is going to basically tell the U.S. to back off, calm down, cool your jets. We got this. Leave it alone. Everything will be okay. But if you insist, there will be other issues that comes up, and the issues are not going to be one that you would like and you prepared to deal with. That is what is going to be said. You are not going to be able to deal with what we are prepared to do. So right now, the United States is testing the waters, and they're trying to find a solution. At the same time, build up and maintain the Western Hemisphere, but also have impact and influence on other parts of the world. That is something I think the United States is going to have to revisit, because people are now looking at other options. And the options are, we are not going to take your conditional and transitional rhetoric and conditions. We are basically going to shop around. We will maintain a friendly and cordial relationship with your country, but we are looking at other options, and we are sovereign countries, and the countries that we talk to are also sovereign countries, and we are looking at free trade and commerce, freedom of will, peace of mind, quality of life issues. And right now, with the tariffs and the military imposition of the United States is reflecting on the world, most of the countries are not looking at the United States as something that will enhance their future. More importantly, they are concerned about maintaining what they have, because it appears that the United States want to claim and have ownership outside of the continent. Thank you.
Very important update from Norman Floyd Barnes. I picked out some of the key venues where Norman was talking about regarding the U.S. Intervention or the U.S. Contributions inside other Asian allies. And one of the most important thing that I picked out from Norman's comments was regarding the U.S. military and its budget. I believe that in the coming year, the budget is set to be somewhere with an additional $500 billion accumulating to $1.5 trillion of budget for the U.S. defense and military spending. So that would definitely cause other allied nations or other powers to increase their defense spending. We've seen the situation inside Europe, inside Germany as well as France. But I was talking about Japan and China. They had a verbal spat regarding the two sides during the Munich Security Conference, as Japan continued to object to the claim by China's top diplomat Wang Yi that Tokyo was returning to militarism, saying that it did not reflect reality. Of course, the foreign minister for Japan, Toshimitsu Motegi, said on 14th February that Mr. Wang's comment was not based on facts, and his ministry followed up with a social media post on the 15th reinforcing his view. So at this moment, there's a narrative being thrown between the two sides, Japan and China, and of course the Chinese side has reminded Japan of the World War II aggression that we've seen because of militarism. So I want to understand from Ali Ahmed, as you were hearing Norman Floyd Burns, your outlook for the remainder of the year.
One has to think of historical and other things dispassionately. Japan, of course, prior to the Second World War, was a militaristic nation, aggressive. They occupied most of the neighboring countries, and China is such a vast country, but they could not occupy the whole of China, but they occupied a major part of the China bordering the Pacific, and they ruled it for a long time. And there were serious bombing in Nanking. Our poet Jivananda Das has also written a poem on this. So China has, Japan has been in the past a militaristic nation, aggressive. But then most of the countries prior to the Second World War peace was sort of aggressive, because it was a result of its aggressive policies of the European countries plus Japanese aggressiveness brought about this. And China was very peaceful and supine and not a power at the time. So that is why. But now that America is retreating to its own hemisphere, as America himself or herself claims it. So China was compulsorily made a neutered nation. Armed forces were limited, no navy, no air force, nothing. Now that America's umbrella has been taken out by Donald Trump, and now that the world has taken a turn for the worse, Europe is rearming very vigorously because of America's retreat from NATO. So that is the reason why everybody is arming, and Japan is a large enough economy and no good military. I am against militarism anywhere. I am against armed forces like this. But then, considering the reality of the world, if everybody is rearming and preparing for an eventual or possible war, why shouldn't Japan do it? Japan has the right to do so. China should not be unhappy about this.
Of course.
They should improve relations.
Right. Improving relations, and of course coming back to the stage on globalization and diplomacy around the world. But now we're seeing a rise of militarism. This
everywhere.
Is not because of any state's choosing. It is because of the situations that we are having to live through. 46 days of the year had definitely pointed out that countries are now re-engaging in increasing their national spending towards their military budgets. We've seen a pacifist nation, Japan, coming out. Even last year, we've seen them how they have now appointed more of their GDP towards military spending.
Yes.
And it's not only so, we've seen some nations in Europe, especially NATO, increasing their military spending issue coming up of last year. So I want to ask this question to Norman. Given the United States situation and international standing, it is only contested by China and its ranking as the second power of global dominion, if not domination. So I want to understand, it is the 81st year since the World War II had happened, and right now active conflicts are everywhere. If you look at Ukraine and Russia is ongoing, we have tensions in the Caribbean, we have tensions in the Middle East, and only place that is still remaining very peaceful would be the Asian corridor, as I was talking with you both gentlemen in the studio. So a movement to move away from globalization towards militarism. Your views, and do you think that every nation shall participate?
This is a very intriguing question, because on one view, the appearance outward is a military one, but basically, and we said military, we need to clarify that. Military in the sense of we are talking about moving in the future, is more of a defensive matter, basically to protect their own sovereign countries and to provide a impact to aggressors so they will not be able to respond or continue the attack or the invasion. This is much more, this is something that's led by China. China is a very stable, calm response to military action. They mentioned that, you may get the first attack, but we're going to ensure that you will not be able to make the second one. That is very profound because basically that philosophy is being played apart across the whole globe. We are looking at more countries are building up their military in terms of self-defense, protecting their homeland, and not to be aggressive, the attacker, like say, AKA Russia. They are more concerned about protecting what they have and ensuring that the potential invaders do not have a sustainable attack on their country, and they can prevent them through dialogue, talk, and presence, not to interfere with their sovereign countries. So we're moving into another period of time where the military is more of something to show that we have the ability to protect ourselves instead of we are going to attack and attack you. We may have some skirmishes, I call them skirmishes or incidents that come up in the future, but they will be very limited in scope and more so basically you hit me, I hit you, we go back and we reassess what's going on. All our wars like the World War II, World War I, these are things I say of the past. It'll be more of an issue with artificial intelligence, drone type warfare, jamming, and infrastructure protection. These are the things that that is critical. Because as you know, in any war, you have to go back and you have to rebuild and construct and put things back together. The victors always have to be in position to take that over. So basically, destroying things is not an option, but disabling and limiting your ability to take care of your sovereign country, take care of your people, and progress as a profitable country. These are the things that countries are now assessing. How can we limit the impact and also have be effective deterrent to any type of country or any type of regime that want to basically interfere with this. So we're moving into a whole nother scope of dealing with things. So the military appearance, again, I want to reinforce this, is just one of posture and position to let people know that we have the capabilities to protect our own and to ensure that you will not continue a sustainable attack or take over our sovereign government. That is the lessons people are learning from the first 46 days of the year from what the United States is doing, is that they must protect their homeland, and we must show that we can and will not tolerate any type of threat on our sovereignty. Thank you.
Very important updates coming from Norman Floyd Barnes regarding military and its spending, and of course how technology and artificial intelligence do play a part in modern day era. In these times, it is not how many deaths has occurred in the battlefield, more as it is the drone that has caused an explosion to energy infrastructure, or that is the situation we see on the ground with the modern day warfare. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to take a short break. After the break, we shall discuss our region.
And domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan.
Opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing.
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
With President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan.
Opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of the
Welcome back to the last segment of International Affairs. Of course, we had our geopolitical correspondent, Norman Floyd Barnes. I must thank him for joining us on the show today. But on towards the issue regarding our region, I wanted to understand the election results that came up last Thursday and how important that is for our foreign policy. Yesterday, Mr. Tariq Rahman had visited his opposition members or his competition inside the parliament into their residences to understand the exclusivity of how Bangladesh sees the coming days and how this government shall be taking the steps to understand where Bangladesh stands in the international geopolitical arena, because I believe, or it seems to be, a reset of ties between our immediate neighbors India as well as Pakistan, China and those who have bordered us, as well as Nepal and Bhutan and Myanmar. So coming back to the issue that we were discussing regarding border skirmishes from around the world, at this moment the Bangladeshi economy is relying on factors of two important factors. One is, of course, the RMG, ready-made garments export from Bangladesh to the entire global markets, as well as the remittance warriors who have made sure of the reserve balance of Bangladesh remain in a very proper level. So yesterday, Mr. Tariq Rahman, or the day before, was questioning or answering various questions regarding from international at a news conference. So that is holding very important as international affairs on this platform. We understand that Bangladesh is the cornerstone of geopolitics inside this region. I say that because we have heard many things over the weekend, and I want to understand how Ali Ahmed feels about the coming times. From one instance, I know that the leader, Mr. Tariq Rahman, may have his foreign visit to first visit to China. So still not sure, as we understand that the oath-taking ceremony is set to be happening tomorrow. So I want to understand how Ali Ahmed feels about our region.
Well, one has to be, politics is a game of reality. You cannot be emotional, you cannot be sentimental. Your own personal likings and dislikings have to be set aside and think of the overall development, overall friendship of the country. As the Prime Minister, Mr. Tariq Rahman, has to think of that, as any Prime Minister has to. So for the welfare of the country, Bangladesh, being the geopolitical situation, having India on all sides except the Bay of Bengal, and China almost on our neck over there, these both have been friendly countries to us. But for mishandling of political incidents locally in the country, we lean too closely to India, angering our people. So there has been this outburst at the ouster of the previous Prime Minister. There should be a balanced, friendly relation between Bangladesh and India, between China and India, Bangladesh. If possible, we should try to unite them, but that may not be possible. That is too far cry, because they are now world powers and they have their world ambitions, and America is there at the back. Therefore, these countries' leaders and people also must think of try striking a good, balanced politico-economic relations with both India and China, as well as with the rest of the world, and especially with the neighbors, of course, all the neighbors. That is a must. If you balance, if you tilt more to one side, if you anger the other, that is bad for the country. We want Chinese assistance, Chinese technology, Chinese many things, and also India's trade and everything. We must be friendly with all.
Of course, and that hand of friendship must be extended to all of our neighbors. There is a level of concern that we might look forward to in the coming days. Of course, Tariq Rahman has been very clear in saying that it is a Bangladesh first policy that he is trying to implement through his party,
in
the
fact,
Bangladesh
it is
Nationalist
very
Party.
intelligently saying nothing, saying everything without saying anything.
Very less is more. The design strategy in almost all aspects is less is more. The less you say, the more impact you have. The less you wear, the more impact you have in designing terms. And I am a core believer that less is always more. But one of the issues that I want to bring out, because we are talking about our region, the relationship between India and China. Of course, it is important to understand in multiple fronts.
There is a global rivalry.
It's a global rivalry, and it's not only military issues that come up with border disputes. It's also manufacturing issues. Most manufacturing houses have moved away from China into India for lower labor costs. And I believe that we capitalized on the lower labor salaries in Bangladesh regarding garments that have gone out as well.
There are many things. We need a good, democratic and peaceful atmosphere in the country, law and order being good, then China and many others will come. We have to ensure our home turf, and then you will see investment will come in so many ways from so many sectors. That is the most important thing. Making it a law-abiding. Mr. Tariq Rahman, the incoming Prime Minister, he said that, well, we should have go by law, and he used this word a few times. Rule of law. That it is a very tough thing, easier said than done. In the past, I said before and I say it now, till now, no government, and I say no government since the liberation of Bangladesh has ever ensured or tried to ensure the rule of law. So, no government. Now that this relatively young leader comes with his, of course, many questionable past and all that, but if he really means what he now says, and the way he says it, the country is going to head towards a peaceful and developing run, definitely. But if he changes, if he cannot maintain it, then of course future will be uncertain. But we believe he will be able to do it.
Very excellent discussion we are having. I want to leave this discussion by saying that there's an eastern sector that India calls Arunachal Pradesh, which China calls southern Tibet. So that is a fight for another day between our two other neighbors. But I must thank Ali Ahmed for his contributions and valuable insight for the development of this program, as well as Norman Floyd Barnes joining us almost on a daily basis with world's most important news. Ladies and gentlemen, as I draw a closure, today is the 16th of February, which marks Chinese New Year, also known as the Spring Festival, marks the beginning of a new year in the traditional lunisolar Chinese calendar. It is the most important holiday in Chinese culture and was placed on the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity list in 2024. It also signifies the shared prosperity between friends and family. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. I shall catch you all on tomorrow's International Affairs.